I think so many young men today are wildly depressed because they lack purpose or a sense of self. They just go around every day mindlessly not knowing what to do without any sort of moral or ethical, any sort of internal compass leading them into a better direction. So you just wake up, if you have work or school, you go to school, you come home, you scroll on Instagram, go on Netflix, maybe watch porn, you play video games, and then you repeat that. Maybe you go to work, but you have no sense of self. And I say that because that is how I was in high school. I didn't have a purpose. I had nothing that I was striving to achieve. Of course, I would go to the gym, which massively helped once I started going to the gym. That gave me some sort of sense of purpose. And inevitably, you start to want more out of life. Maybe it's to pick up girls, maybe it's to not be a loser anymore, but eventually I got to that stage. But I know a lot of people, and I know how easy it would to slip into that kind of position where you just mindlessly go about life without ever really wanting anything. That is what I think is very dangerous because I think that the human mind searches for some sort of meaning. So people tie their external values to maybe politics or some sort of ideology, which is why it's so easy to fall into some sort of cult like stature. And I'm not saying a cult is everybody dressing up in a robe. I think politics, in a lot of senses, are cults because let's say you're on the left or on the right, just super hardcore. You've built your identity upon that. If let's say you're on the left and you start to, let's just take Canada for example, where they are now helping people with assisted suicide, which makes me sick to my stomach even thinking about. Basically, they are killing people, but saying it is virtuous. If you are on the left, let's say, you and your identity is tied to that. If the left moves in a certain direction, let's say towards killing people and calling it ethical, you have to, if you want to maintain your identity, follow along suit. Or if you want to, let's say, transgenders, if you want to chop off your penis, say that you have something else down there, and going to the women's restroom, you have to support that. Or doing that to children, just, in my opinion, incredibly unethical deeds. Same thing with the right. You are forced to go with that ideology. But I think it goes in many different categories of life because it's so hard to find meaning with your own life because life is so easy. So you have to choose to struggle. You have to willingly put yourself in a position of harm, which most people just don't do. Why would you choose to throw yourself into harm's way? Well, you have to really want something more or realize that by doing that hard thing or by putting yourself in an uncomfortable position, there will be an external benefit further down the line. Like, let's say, doing intensive workouts. Yes, it may be incredibly strenuously difficult, but you have the longevity of better health. You're actually getting in better shape in every single aspect. You are actually doing better in the long run. Your brain stimuli actually start to increase, but you have to choose to put yourself in that kind of position. Same thing with not eating the garbage poison, I would say, that we are given as food. Giving your children cereal, instead choosing to make, let's say, fresh organic eggs or some steak or one ingredient foods. You have to choose to do that. But it is so easy and cheap and tastes good to eat super bad. Or it is so easy to watch Netflix or to masturbate yourself to death as opposed to studying or reading books or trying to maybe become more religious or meditate or do anything that is good for you. Because we live in a day and age of such abundance, it makes it easy to never do anything hard. But doing something hard is actually what gives a lot of meaning in life and a lot of purpose. Then you start to want more. But you can't really want more until you start to do more, unfortunately. One of my buddies always says you can't want more for somebody than they want for themselves. And once you get to a certain position, I want to help as many people as possible when I cross their paths, at least for the most part in most circumstances. But You can't just force somebody to want to be better, even if you have the answer. It is actually better for them to come to the conclusion on their own. And it's sometimes hard. For me, I feel incredibly empathetic for very obese people because I know that I could be that way. If I never started going to the gym, it would be very easy for me to eat like shit all day. And that is my default bad habit. When things are going bad, I just start shoveling bad food down my throat. And I just absolutely just make a pig out of myself. And I can do that. But I know that I shouldn't. And it is also very easy for me to gain weight. I completely understand the position of somebody who is wildly obese. And the first step to losing weight is just putting down the fork. It is very, very challenging because most of those people have tried different diets and that just repetitively fail, or you try and make some money online, but you give up and then you fail. It really comes down to just sticking to something. And I didn't really find purpose until I was maybe already 6 months of studying something every single day for 6 months. And I was doing it for 10 hours and I hated it. I hated it. I was wildly uncomfortable. I would have rather been doing just about anything else. But I knew that if I endured the discomfort of doing something I didn't want to do, but I knew was beneficial, there would be long-term benefits. It's the same thing when you first start going to the gym and you're so sore and everything sucks and you don't see any results for, let's say, 2 months, especially if you're overweight. Getting through those few months and eating well and sticking to some sort of plan and progressively overloading and getting better every single day, it is wildly difficult. It's just you got to get through the initial habit-based formation. And now I could not go a day without doing some sort of exercise. My body just wouldn't allow me to. Same thing with working. Because I've trained my brain to love work, I could not go a day without working. It would be incredibly difficult for me, at least in some sense of the manner, or at least doing something to educate myself in some way, shape, or form. Your body starts to crave it as it did the bad food because you know the long term benefit that you get. It comes back down to having purpose. Because it's so easy to be lazy, there's no need to want more. And then you have this massive divide of a small percentage of people who do actively put themselves in discomfort and they reap the rewards of usually monetary sense, physical achievement, and they get, let's say, 99% of the achievement because most people just don't put themselves in the position. But really, the barrier to entry has never been lower. At the same time, it's also never been easier to be lazy and also live a quasi successful life. Or not, I wouldn't, that's not my definition of success, but a very easy life. And I don't think people just find a purpose. I didn't. I didn't just find a purpose and just start loving working. I hated working, but I forced myself to do it. And eventually I loved it because I started to get frustrated. You start to learn and then you start to I found massive, massive enjoyment. Now I absolutely love what I do. But you just kind of have to start. And then you start to make some money. And it is very fun. I love making money, especially when you never have to worry about expenses. If you want to travel every weekend or you want to eat whatever food you want to eat, it makes it a hell of a lot more enjoyable. And with the lifestyle that I'm living, I don't care if I ever make more money per month because I can do everything that I ever need to do, at least with not having material expenses like having a family and a child and a house. I continuously want more because there's so much fun in that. When I have a day like I did today where I was working all day, then working out, it is the most satisfying day possible. I feel 100,000 times better now than if I just did nothing all day and I was consuming Netflix and watching movies and TV shows. I would feel miserable like right now. And I know that because I've had days where that's all I do and I feel miserable. Whereas when I do hard things, I absolutely am fired up at the end of the day to keep on living. And that doesn't mean I do this all the time. Because obviously, we all know that we should be doing this. So then why don't we? Honestly, I mean, everyone knows what you should be doing. The person on the other side of the screen, I know for a fact, you know that you do something you know that you shouldn't be doing. And you know a habit that you could replace that bad thing with. But we don't do it. Saying these things is so easy. It's the action that matters. You could know absolutely everything about making money. You could listen to every single book or read every single book, listen to every single podcast, have the exact plan all written out in your head. You could articulate it better than anything. But if you don't do it, it never will matter. It's the action that really drives it. And that's why I don't like motivational videos or speeches, because all you're doing is trying to fire yourself up to have some sort of short-term result. So you short-term take action. And if that works to get you out of bed, great. But you need something that's deeper than that. I mean, I have a burning sense of self-doubt and constantly wanting to prove myself to myself, because in my head I think I can do such great things if I put my mind to it. Because I would challenge you. If you've ever tried your 100% on something, you probably have never failed. And I would guarantee if you think that you have, you probably didn't give it your 100%. Anything that I've ever, I don't even know if I've given my 100% on anything before, but when you give everything you have, I've always gotten the result that I wanted and more. So that just makes me think and know deep down that if I just put every single ounce and sweat and tear into anything that I'm doing, I could quite literally do anything. And so I'm extraordinarily hard on myself because I know what I could accomplish if I were doing the things that needed to get done. And I think everybody knows that deep down. Sometimes you need to do something and see the result to know that you are capable of doing those things. And so if you don't know what to do, just do something. Just do something and not what you know you shouldn't be doing. That's the number one thing. I hate making videos like this because it's obvious. It is. It is. Everyone knows it. Sometimes you just have to be reminded. I have to remind myself constantly. But it's so, so important because you are actually so much happy, or at least I can't speak for other people. I can't read other people's mind or know what goes on through their head. But I am so much more fulfilled after doing something meaningful and getting it done and working hard. The act itself of effort instead of just dragging myself along day by day, which I know so many people do. And I've done it before. And if I do it for a few days in a row, I get very, very down on myself. It's so easy to go into that negative downward slope. And so it's just doing the actions that you know you need to do, unfortunately.